Hey everyone, Howard from Growth Velocity Academy, and I want to share with you how to start a business. I want to teach you the three things in this session how to launch a business. If you're the type of person that is always kind of deep down found, I want to have my own business. I don't want to be working for someone. I have some ideas. I just don't know how to do it. I want to share the three key things that I know you need to do. And I want to share with you at the end of the session, I'll also share with you like the one book I think if you read, it's going to dramatically increase the likelihood that you will succeed. Now, I remember when I was growing up, I grew up on a farm in Ireland and, my dad milked cows and, I was so far away from the online world and digital and technology and stuff. You look at someone like Steve Jobs, who was building computers in a garage, as a teenager. I was definitely not like that. All right. And I really had to learn the hard way. I've launched many businesses over the last few years. And what I'm going to share here is the exact method how I can launch a business now today, fast and successfully. And I'm really confident doing it. Whereas back then, the first time I launched a business, didn't go so well. Right. My first business, I'd say we probably made, I don't know, maybe about, 20, 30K. With my second business, I probably made about 20, 30K again, but I took those lessons and I built on them. And now I've been able to launch businesses and make way more, just do really well financially. I want to share that with you. Okay. So tip number one is to scratch your own itch. This is something it took me a while to learn this. And if I could give this gift to you to do this, it's going to save you years of time. All right. There's a saying, if you have an itch and you need to scratch it, you've got, that feeling. Now, what a lot of people do when I chat to entrepreneurs thinking of starting a business, I work with a lot of startup accelerators, for example, and people have ideas for a business and they're these like random ideas, maybe in an industry that they're not familiar with, or, they just don't have any what's called domain expertise in. I really would. That's a big mistake I see people make, and I'd really encourage you not to do that. Try and focus on something that you have a bit of a passion in, a subject that you have a passion in, a problem that you've seen in the world that you want to fix. That's what's called scratching your own itch. And think about, I remember when I launched one of my businesses, I launched a holiday business many years ago to a market that I just knew nothing about. And it just set me up. It made it way, way more difficult. If you have a bit of domain expertise, even either something you're passionate about or maybe something you've worked in that industry for a while, you're going to have a competitive advantage over other people. So if you can focus on that area, you'll be set up. It's a good thing to do. Right? Now, if you're trying to come up with ideas in those domain expertise, you can do something. I read a blog post from a guy called James Altucher, a great blogger, and he has this idea about building the idea muscle. All right, the idea muscle. And coming up with ideas is just like any muscle. You got to work it to build the muscle. So what he recommends is every day, for 10 minutes every morning, just get out a piece of paper and a pen and write down 10 ideas. 10 ideas you're most excited about. And just do that every single day. And the reality is, a lot of them will be crap ideas, but in there, if you do that for 2, 3, 4 weeks, guess what? You're going to have some great ideas in there. And there's going to be some ideas you just keep on coming back to and going, yes, I'm excited about that. I remember I did that when I was leaving my advertising business at Ludio. When I was stepping away from that to launch before I launched Growth Velocity Academy, I was doing that. I was, right, okay, what ideas am I most excited about? And it's really, really useful. So tip one is scratch your own itch. Tip number two is don't launch a business, run an experiment. Okay? Now, when a lot of people are thinking of launch a business, they get all like, they build it up in their head. It's like, oh, this, I have to have this perfect idea, and I need to, start telling everyone I'm going to launch a business, and it builds up so much pressure. Now, again, I remember when I was before I launched Growth Velocity Academy, I had just stepped away from my advertising, a successful advertising business, which is super successful today. And I was going to Mount Everest. I was going to do Everest Base Camp, and I met up with a coach of mine, I have a guy called Philip McKiernan, an amazing guy. And I was chatting with him, and I was like, he was asking me, are you excited about going to Everest? And I was like, yeah, but I really want to have my next business idea ready before I get down off the mountain. And he just laughed at me, and he said, what pressure? What if you didn't know what the idea was? I was like, just enjoy it. Don't worry about it. And instead of like putting all this pressure on this new idea, I decided to actually, not worry about it. And when I got down off the mountain, I decided to take a different approach. And rather than like pressure that I have to have this perfect business idea, I decided to run 90-day experiments. Okay. And when I got down off the mountain, I said, listen, you know what? I don't know exactly what I want to do yet, but I know I'm excited about this thing, this idea I'm excited about. So don't forget, you just wrote down, you've been building your idea muscle yourself. So whichever idea you're most excited about, just pick one and go, right, you know what? I'm going to run an experiment for the next 90 days. Now, here's the beautiful thing about experiments, guys. You win either way. If the experiment goes well, and let's say you do something to launch the business and it goes well, great. You've now got some positive feedback, and who knows, that might be your business idea. But guess what? Imagine it doesn't go well. Well, the great thing about an experiment is you learn either way. That's why I love it. It's such a nice idea. So even if the experiment doesn't go well, you go, okay, well, I ran that for 90 days. I've learned I don't like that idea. People don't like it, or maybe people do like it, but you know what? That one's not for me. And then you can do another 90-day experiment. So just consider running a series of 90-day experiments every 90 days rather than putting, this big idea, pressure on yourself for coming up with the world's perfect idea, when in reality, if you think about all the successful businesses out there, very rarely does the initial business idea turn out to be exactly what people are working on a year or two later. It's always the way. So think about what is your next 90-day experiment. And then tip number 3 is create an MVT. Now that stands for minimum viable test. Okay. Now, what is a minimum viable test? Now, some of you who are into the world, a kind of startup world, might have heard of the term minimum viable product. Now, this is slightly different. This is like, when I'm thinking of starting something new, I will always challenge myself and go, okay, how can I test if this is even a bit of a thing in the shortest amount of time? So think about even like a weekend or a week with the minimum amount of budget. All right, just to get some initial feedback on the idea that you've come up with. Because once you get some initial feedback from real customers, that's when you can kind of start figuring out, is this a real thing? Rather than just coming up with a bit of a random idea that nobody wants, and then 6 months, a year down the line, build a website, get your logo ready, get your company set up, and then realizing a year later that nobody wants to buy it. Like, that sucks. Trust me, I've done that in the past. I set up a holiday company and I spent loads of time, with the website and all this kind of stuff. And when I launched it, I didn't really get many customers. So you can do it a different way and try and market to people straight away. And that's with a minimum viable test. Now, this is something that a lot of people do. Like Innocent Smoothies, you may have heard of, very successful smoothie company. They had an idea for smoothies and for a smoothie company. And guess, now smoothies are everywhere, but back then they weren't. They were one of the first businesses that really made them famous. They went to an event, a music festival, and they were making smoothies for people. And they famously had a sign above the smoothie table that said, should we quit our jobs to to start a smoothie business, start a business on these smoothies. And when people drank the drink, there was a yes bucket and a no bucket. And people could vote with their drinks. And at the end of the session, at the end of the day, they saw that the yes bucket was full and the no bucket was empty. And that's just one great example. Okay, so what's a way you could run a minimum viable test? Get it out there to people as soon as possible. I'll give you another example, a personal example, how I started Growth Velocity Academy. When we were launching it, did people want digital marketing courses? Did they actually want it? So we decided to run an event, and we ran a 1-2 hour event, okay, in a city. We picked the city of Beirut, and we decided to run 1-2 hour event, not a huge cost, like $25 or something like that. I forget how much, but that's not the point. The point is not to get rich from the minimum viable test. It's just to get an insight into how many people want to buy, do people want to buy this thing? And we ran the event and it was sold out, huge success. And that got us really motivated that, there's real demand for digital marketing courses in these different cities. Okay. And I could go on and on and on with other different examples, but what I would recommend to you is I challenge you to consider, how could you test your idea by putting it out to the market in the next week for almost no budget? Limit yourself on budget to maybe $100 if you want to run some ads or whatever, but almost force yourself to go, if I had to promote this, what could I do? Maybe it's build a landing page. Maybe it's promote an event. Maybe you do an event. In today's world, if everyone's virtual, you could run a virtual event and just, either charge a low amount or even do it for free and see how many people sign up for it. It's just something that gives you some forward momentum and get some real life feedback from people in the market. Okay, so guys, what I've just been sharing is 3 ways that you can start a business and how to start a business. Tip number 1 is to scratch your own itch. Don't come up with some random idea you've no expertise in. Come up with something you have a bit of either passion or domain expertise in. Tip number 2, don't start a business, run a 90-day experiment. It'll feel far freer, far less pressure. And tip number 3 is create an MVT, a minimum viable test, something that you can test in the first week or 2 weeks to see, is there, a little bit of feedback off the market. Okay. And my kind of bonus tip for you is, guys, just start. Don't worry about it being too big. Don't worry about it not being a big thing. Like some people their ego takes over and they go, oh no, it has to be a big business and, have to have offices. I need to have business cards. Guys, don't worry about starting small. Just start. Just start. Okay. Now, at the start of the session, I also shared the one book I think everyone should read that will save them so much time and probably make the difference between you succeeding and not. And it's a book called The Lean Startup. The Lean Startup by a guy called Eric Ries. It's a Silicon Valley entrepreneur who had launched a really famously unsuccessful business. He talks through the lessons and he creates this way to test things in the market that reduces your chance of failure. It's kind of quite famous in Silicon Valley now, and I think it's essential reading. Anyone who's wanting to launch a business in today's world, it's going to dramatically improve the likelihood of you succeeding, which I want you to do. Okay, so guys, if you know somebody who's thinking of launching a business, please do share this message with them and we can get this message out there and have as many entrepreneurs out there as we can. Okay, peace out and chat soon.